I stole his ashes. Petty revenge. Mark always smelled faintly of patchouli and desperation. I used to find it endearing. Now, the memory makes me want to scrub my skin raw. He'd moved in a year after we started dating. It'll be cheaper for both of us, he'd said, strumming some god-awful chord on his acoustic guitar. Cheaper for him, definitely. I was paying 70 of the rent, plus all the utilities, groceries, and basically anything else that wasn't directly related to his music career. I'm Sarah, by the way. Or at least that's who I was before I decided to become a master of petty revenge. I design websites for a living. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills that apparently were also covering Mark's ramen habit and his weekly jam sessions. The discovery was cliché. A stray text message flashed on his phone while he was in the shower. Chloe, can't wait to see you tonight. There were hearts, emojis. I felt like I was starring in a terrible rom-com. Except, not romantic at all. I stood there, dripping in metaphorical shower water myself, phone shaking in my hand. Chloe. I vaguely recognized the name from his Instagram. Some bubbly blonde who hawked teeth-whitening kits and fast fashion dresses. Ugh. My first instinct was to scream, to throw his guitar out the window, to key his stupid vintage motorcycle that he restored mostly with my money. But then I saw Winston. Winston's ashes, to be precise. Winston was Mark's dog, a goofy, slobbery golden retriever who had passed away a few months prior. Mark was devastated, understandably. He'd had Winston since he was a kid. He couldn't bear to deal with the ashes, he said. Too painful. Could I hold on to them for him? Just until he was ready, of course, I'd said yes. I was a good girlfriend, supportive, a doormat, apparently. And that's when the thought hit me. A dark, twisted little seed of an idea that started as a joke but quickly blossomed into a full-blown plan. What if I did something with Winston's ashes? Something truly awful. I told Emily about it the next day over overpriced avocado toast. Emily is a lawyer, the kind who wears power suits and can argue her way out of a speeding ticket. She's also my best friend. Sarah, no, she said, before I even finished explaining. That's insane. You can't just desecrate someone's pet's remains. That's like a felony or something. I'm not going to desecrate them, I said, rolling my eyes. I'm going to repurpose them. Emily sighed. Look, I understand you're hurt, but this is not the way to deal with it. Go to therapy. Join a kickboxing class. Don't become a criminal. I just want to make him hurt as much as I'm hurting, I mumbled, picking at my toast. Emily softened. I know, sweetie, but trust me, this won't make you feel better in the long run. It'll just make you look crazy. Maybe I am crazy, I muttered. Despite her initial reservations, Emily couldn't help but offer a little very cautious legal advice. Just be careful. And don't tell anyone, especially not on social media. Over the next few weeks, I started gathering intel. I stalked Mark's social media, Chloe's social media, even his dad's, Richard, a self-made millionaire with a penchant for golf and enabling his son's bad behavior. I needed to know their routines, their weaknesses, their triggers. I also started frequenting the coffee shop down the street. David, the barista, was a good listener. I'd drop hints about my project, carefully gauging his reaction. He thought I was writing a screenplay, which in a way I guess I was. So the main character is betrayed by her boyfriend. I told him one afternoon, sipping my latte, and she wants revenge, but she wants it to be epic. David raised an eyebrow. What kind of revenge are we talking about? Like keying his car? Bigger, I said with a mysterious smile, much bigger. The first act of revenge was small, tame even. I anonymously ordered 10 extra large pizzas to Mark's apartment at 3 a.m. Pepperoni, anchovies, the works. He called me the next day, ranting about how some idiot had pranked him. I played dumb, offering him a sympathetic ear. It felt good, but it wasn't enough. I needed to go bigger. That's when I decided to visit the crematorium. It was a surprisingly cheerful place, all pastel colors and soft lighting. Brenda, the receptionist, was a sweet, grandmotherly type. She greeted me with a warm smile and offered me a brochure. Just looking for some information, I said, trying to sound casual. My father passed away recently, and we're considering cremation. Brenda nodded sympathetically. I'm so sorry for your loss. It's never easy. I spent the next hour asking her questions, casually extracting information about their procedures, their record keeping, their release policies. I learned that only the legally authorized next of kin could claim the ashes, or someone with written authorization from the next of kin. Bingo. I also learned that Brenda was a bit gullible. She seemed to trust everyone. I filed that information away for later. Next, I sabotaged Mark's band's gig. I messed with the sound equipment, subtly altering the levels so that his guitar sounded like a dying cat. He glared at me from the stage, convinced I was behind it, but he couldn't prove anything. The crowd booed. It was glorious. Then, I created a fake Instagram account and started spreading embarrassing stories about Mark. Mostly true stories, embellished for maximum impact. I posted pictures of him wearing my old bathrobe, eating cereal out of a mixing bowl, and singing off-key karaoke. Chloe started liking my posts. I felt a pang of guilt. Maybe she wasn't so bad after all. But then I remembered the text messages. The hearts, the emojis. Guilt vanished. It was time for the main event, the crematorium. Brenda, my best impersonation of Mark's mother. Mark's mom, Susan, lived in Florida. I had only met her a few times, but I'd studied her voice, her mannerisms, her Facebook posts. I knew she had a slight southern drawl and a tendency to overshare. I called the crematorium and asked for Brenda. "Hi, Brenda, honey, it's Susan, Mark's mother." I laid on the drawl thick. "Listen, I need a little favor. Mark's just been so broken up about Winston, just can't seem to get over it. He's been drinking a lot and not taking care of himself. I talked to his therapist and she thinks if I had Winston's ashes here with me that I can make an altar or something, so I can just give him some love." I paused, adding a sob to my voice. "He's just not ready to have them, you see. It's just too much for him right now." Brenda was immediately sympathetic. "Oh, honey, I understand completely. Let me see what I can do." I held my breath. "Okay, I think we can make an exception since you're the mother. We'll just need you to fill out a release form. I can fax it to you or email it." "Email would be just wonderful, dear," I said. I used a burner email address and a fake ID. I even forged Susan's signature. It was surprisingly easy. A few days later, a small, nondescript package arrived at my apartment. Inside, nestled in bubble wrap, was a polished wooden urn. Winston. I held the urn in my hands, feeling the weight of it. The weight of my actions. The weight of my anger. The weight of Winston himself. Suddenly, the whole thing felt wrong. Was I really going to do this? Was I really going to desecrate the memory of a dead dog just to get back at my cheating ex-boyfriend? Emily's words echoed in my head, "It'll just make you look crazy." But then I thought about Mark. About his selfishness, his lies, his complete lack of empathy. About how he'd used me, manipulated me, and then tossed me aside like yesterday's garbage. And the anger came flooding back. I opened the urn. Inside was a plastic bag filled with gray dust. Winston. "Okay, Sarah. Time to get to work." Mark's band was playing a show at a local dive bar that Friday night. It was their biggest gig yet, a chance to impress some record executives who were rumored to be in the audience. This was it. I spent the next few days meticulously planning my attack. I bought a black wig, oversized sunglasses, and a trench coat. I looked like a character from a bad spy movie. I even practiced scattering ashes in my apartment using flour as a stand-in. It was messy. On Friday night, I arrived at the bar early, blending into the crowd. The place was packed, full of hipsters and music snobs. Mark was on stage, tuning his guitar. He looked nervous. Good. I found a spot near the front of the stage, close enough to make sure he noticed me. The lights dimmed. The music started. Mark launched into one of his original songs, a sappy ballad about lost love. I almost gagged. As the song reached its crescendo, I reached into my bag and pulled out the urn. I took a deep breath. This was it. I unscrewed the lid and grabbed a handful of Winston's ashes. And then I threw them. The ashes rained down on Mark, covering his face, his hair, his guitar. The crowd gasped. Mark froze, his eyes wide with shock and horror. "That's for cheating on me, Mark," I yelled, my voice cracking with emotion. "And that's for Winston." Chaos erupted. The music stopped. People started screaming. Mark jumped off the stage and ran towards me, his face contorted with rage. "You crazy bitch," he shouted, grabbing my arm. I ripped myself free and ran out of the bar, pushing through the crowd. I could hear Mark chasing after me, yelling obscenities. I managed to escape into the night, my heart pounding in my chest. I ran all the way to Emily's apartment, bursting through her door like a fugitive. "I did it," I exclaimed, breathless. I scattered Winston's ashes all over Mark. Emily stared at me, her mouth agape. You actually did it." I nodded, grinning like a maniac. "Oh my God, Sarah," she said, shaking her head. "You are completely insane." The next few days were a blur. The story of the ash scattering ex-girlfriend went viral. There were memes, hashtags, and even a segment on the local news. Mark was furious. He called the police, accusing me of assault, harassment, and desecration of a corpse. Officer Davies, a young, slightly bored-looking cop, came to my apartment to take a statement. Emily handled everything, calmly explaining that I had acted in self-defense, emotional self-defense, maybe, and that the ashes were technically Mark's property, so he couldn't claim theft. Richard, Mark's father, got involved. He threatened to sue me, to ruin my career, to make my life a living hell. Emily sent him a cease and desist letter. Chloe even contacted me, surprisingly. She apologized for her role in the whole mess. She said she hadn't known Mark was still with me when they started dating. She seemed genuinely remorseful. "He's not a good guy, Sarah," she said. "You deserve better." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The legal fallout was minimal. I had to pay a small fine for disturbing the peace, but that was it. Mark dropped the charges, probably because his father told him to. But the emotional fallout was complicated. I felt a sense of satisfaction, of course. I had gotten my revenge. I had made Mark pay for what he did. But I also felt empty. The anger that had fueled me for so long was gone, replaced by a dull ache. I realized that I had let Mark consume me, that I had spent so much time plotting my revenge that I had forgotten to take care of myself. I started going to therapy. I joined a kickboxing class. I even started dating again, though I was very careful about who I chose. One evening, a few months later, I was sitting in my apartment working on a new website design. I was actually feeling happy. Then there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find a delivery driver holding a small package. "Sarah?" he asked, double-checking the address. "Yes," I said cautiously. He handed me the package and asked me to sign for it. I did, then closed the door. I stared at the package, my heart pounding in my chest. It was small, square, and wrapped in brown paper. There was no return address. I carefully opened it. Inside was a framed photo, a picture of Winston. On the back was a handwritten note. "I know it was you, Sarah, and I'll never forgive you." The note wasn't signed, but I knew who it was from. Mark. I shuddered. Had I really won, or had I just started a new war? I put the picture of Winston on my bookshelf, a reminder, a warning. A constant reminder that revenge, even the pettiest kind, always comes with a price. Then, a new text from Emily came through. Heard from a reliable source bartender at the dive bar, actually, that Mark and Chloe broke up. Apparently he tried to write a song about the Ash girl and she thought it was incredibly tasteless. Also, Richard is furious with him. "Seems like your work paid off, psycho." I smiled, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. Maybe Emily was right. Maybe I was a psycho, but a psycho with a little bit of peace for now. The next day, while working at the coffee shop, David gave me a knowing look. "So," he said, leaning over the counter, "how does it feel to be a legend?" I shrugged. "It feels complicated." He chuckled. "Well, if you ever need help with your next screenplay, you know where to find me." I smiled. "I might just take you up on that." As I walked home that evening, I noticed a strange car parked across the street from my apartment. It was a black sedan with tinted windows. I couldn't see who was inside, but I had a feeling I knew. I quickened my pace, glancing over my shoulder. The car didn't move. I unlocked my apartment door and hurried inside, locking it behind me. I peeked through the curtains, but the car was gone. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. A week later, I found a dead bird on my doorstep. It wasn't there when I left for work in the morning, but it was there when I came home. It was a small black bird, its neck twisted at an unnatural angle. I didn't touch it. I called animal control. They took the bird away, but they didn't seem concerned. "Probably just an accident," the officer said. But I knew it wasn't an accident. It was a message from Mark. The game wasn't over. It had just begun.